So they created that whole thing against him. And Trump paid his lawyer money for doing legal work. They charged him with 34 felonies for that. 34, one for every check, which they claimed as their primary residence for a homeowner rebate that lowers tax burdens for Arizona residents. That's weird. How can you have two primary residences in two different states? Huh.
The SNAP program is a critical lifeline for tens of millions of Americans throughout our country, and specifically 2.9 New Yorkers. Every day, SNAP benefits make it possible for working families to afford to put food on the table.
Democrats are in big trouble. We see a bunch of different senators now coming out with documents that say that they live somewhere else where they don't live, which is not their primary residence. And the question, of course, is why? Because that's fraud for anybody else. Why can senators get away with it and nobody seems to care? Trump posted this a few days ago, and we see more now because it's about Schiff's fake mortgage. He said he lived primarily in Maryland as a Maryland man, even though he was a representative and a senator from California. So how is his primary residence in Maryland? It's not. But he's not alone. Now we've got this pattern that is emerging because Kari Lake War Room shared this one of an Arizona senator called Ruben Gallego, and he's also now facing some allegations about mortgage fraud. Why can't these people just say it's a second house? I don't know what's so complicated about that, but they're cheaters. Now here is more background on this story, and there's been a lot of digging on this. So with Adam Schiff under scrutiny, now Gallego is coming into this as well, and this dude wants to run for president. With Trump and others applying new scrutiny, we're now seeing a sustained pattern. Trump posted this on True Social, said Adam Shifty is in big trouble. He falsified loan documents. He once said my son would go to prison on a scam that Schiff, along with others, illegally manufactured in order to stage an actual coup. Thank you, Mr. President, for saying that. My son did nothing wrong, knew nothing about the fictional story. It was an American tragedy. Now Shifty should pay the price of prison for a real crime, not one made up by corrupt accusers. Now, in another post, right, Trump posted this. This is the actual document. Schiff is a thief. He should be prosecuted, said President Trump, just like they tried to prosecute me and everyone else. The only difference is we were totally innocent. It was all a giant hoax. Now, here's the actual affidavit. You see right there with pencil necks, disgusting signature, sloppy, just like his face in life. And he posted this in an affidavit made pursuant to the law. The undersigned makes this oath in due form of law and declares under penalties of perjury, the following is true, that we are the original mortgagers of the deed of trust recorded at this property in Maryland, and that the mortgage property is our principal residence. Dun, dun, dun. Busted. The amount of the unpaid principal, $556,000, nice spot back in 2011. Yeah, real nice spot now. Now $500,000 after Joe Biden's 4 years gets you like, I think you can get like a shack at that, like at Lowe's. You get like a couple shacks probably and put those together. But Eve, Adam and Eve Schiff, I'm sure they just love that. And they probably go to parties like, oh, Adam and Eve are here. Like, oh, I know, it's so good to be here. Ridiculous. But that is what Trump said. And now Kari Lake is on to Gallego. And so there's more to this story. They say Fox News host Laura Ingraham also revealed that a criminal referral was sent over to the DOJ by Bill Pulte, who runs the Federal Housing Finance Agency, and it details this crime. Now, there's more to this because Ruben Gallego is also getting caught up. Now, the referral alleges that Schiff has in multiple instances falsified bank documents and property records to acquire more favorable loan terms. Remember, they charged Trump with 34 felonies for mislabeling a payment to Michael Cohen, okay? Like legal expenses, they said it wasn't, don't really know what it should have been, but paying his lawyer, they said was labeled wrong, okay? So falsifying and committing fraud on business records, that's what they, and it was a misdemeanor and they turned it into a felony so that they could keep the statute of limitations going by saying it was in furtherance of another crime, which was to steal an election. Like, it was insane. So they created that whole thing against him. And Trump paid his lawyer money for doing legal work. They charged him with 34 felonies for that. 34, one for every check. Not every check. Check, ledger, okay? So when you write the check, someone marks it down in a spreadsheet. And then when you reconcile it, I think that's what it was, check, ledger, maybe like your transmission, crime, crime, crime. He did that multiple times throughout the year, all of it, 34 felonies. So how do you not charge Schiff with one for every single time he refinanced or bought a separate piece of property that say primary residence on them? The situation should seem familiar to Arizonans after another scandal emerged with the group Veterans for Arizona. They asked Doug Collins why allegations against Ruben Gallego in Arizona have not been investigated. Veterans for Arizona asked this. They wrote in this post, why hasn't Ruben Gallego been investigated for improperly and fraudulently obtaining VA loans? You know, the VA rules apply to the rest of us, so why not him? They posted this, saying in August, Gallego obtained a VA-backed mortgage for a home near Capitol Hill in Washington, declaring it as his principal residence in the loan documents. This was a condition to qualify for the VA VA loan, which offers favorable terms like lower interest rates and no down payment for veterans. However, Gallego and his wife, Sydney, also maintained a home in Phoenix, which is where he's a senator, in Arizona, which they claimed as their primary residence for a homeowner rebate that lowers tax burdens for Arizona residents. That's weird. How can you have two primary residences in two different states? Additionally, in September, they refinanced their Phoenix home, signing a deed of trust agreeing to make it their primary residence for 1 year, overlapping with the DC loan and that timeline. So why is that? Yeah, because they want better rates, and so they're committing mortgage fraud. Now, the issue stems from the VA's requirement that the borrower must intend to occupy the property as their primary residence within 60 days and maintain it as such for at least 1 year. The VA allows flexibility for unusual circumstances if discussed with the appropriate office, but Gallego's campaign declined to provide documentation showing when the discussions occurred. The loan officer stated he was aware of Gallego's residency and that the VA guidelines permitted the approval, and the loan went through the quality control check, so he's good for us. Gallego's campaign asserts that his primary residence is in Arizona, and the VA loan was a legitimate benefit because he was in the Marines. They argued that as a congressman, he needs to maintain both residences. Nobody disagrees with that. In Arizona, due to his job, and the lender was fully informed. No formal allegations of fraud have been filed by the VA. No, of course, we're asking for an investigation. And other authorities, and the VA has stated its policies apply equally to all veterans with no exceptions based on occupation. You mean like all veterans can lie and commit mortgage fraud and say that it's a primary residence when it's not? So that looks like it was an AI summary from something, but it's obviously, crafting that from reports, and here is more of that. In 2023, the Arizona Daily Star, so in other words, the veterans got their hands on this about over a month ago. In 2023, the Arizona Daily Independent reported that Gallego, who was a representative back then, had purchased a house in DC, home near the Capitol, and subsequently claimed that it was his primary residence on documents for a VA loan, while the then congressman and his wife said Phoenix was also primary. Now, then loan documents obtained by Politico confirmed that Gallego's campaign officially kept up the narrative that his primary residence is in Arizona, while he claimed DC. The National Republican Senate Committee also raised concerns at the time that Gallego signed loan documents making DC his primary residence, while at the same time taking advantage of Arizona breaks. And other veterans are not doing this or getting those benefits. So who's paying for that, right? He's taking from somebody else who does have a primary residence and does need that money. This raises questions about whether Gallego committed fraud. Yeah. As election legal law expert told the Arizona Daily Independent, legally, Gallego doesn't have to live in his district to serve in Congress. This isn't like legislative offices or most county offices. His campaign does have to consider the optics of this, which are terrible. If you live in Arizona and you're getting benefits on both ends, you're getting tax benefits in Arizona and you're ripping off other veterans in DC, it's reprehensible. But they're Democrats. That's what they do, is they just steal people's money and grift off the country. And even Tish is now out. So Tishy Lay Tish, she's going crazy now. She's under investigation for her own mortgage fraud. Remember, she had the place in Virginia, I think, that she said it was her primary residence, and she also had the multiplex property where she said there were 4 units when there were really 5 units, because 4 units get lower, better qualify for more things, and a 5 unit is outside of it, so she kind of faked everything, and total fraudster. So now she's acting out, and she wants to prosecute Trump. She wants to go after Trump because she knows she's in the DOJ's eyes.
Thank you, Attorney General Bonta. The SNAP program is a critical lifeline for tens of millions of Americans throughout our country, and specifically 2.9 New Yorkers. Every day, SNAP benefits make it possible for working families to afford to put food on the table.
All right, so she's going to go on her little spiel there, but she's looking rough, man. She looks very nervous, and her face is still spasming as usual. All right, so that's Peter Doocy and Trump saying Shifty is in trouble, and we've got Ruben Gallego also under scrutiny, and criminal referrals have gone over to the DOJ. Veterans are complaining about it, and hopefully they didn't commit any crimes. But if they did, no one's above the law.